listening to the Blue Raider Podcast, presented by Gold's Gym of Tennessee. Your all-access pass to everything Middle Tennessee sports, game recaps, player spotlights, and the latest from the heart of Blue Raider Nation. Now, here's your host, Jay Golden.
Welcome back into the Blue Raider Podcast. Today's special Friday episode where we go behind enemy lines to learn a little bit about our opponent this weekend for Senior Day. It is the Sam Houston Bearkats, and joining us is our friends over at March to the Pod and Sports of Sam Houston State, Ben Sorrells. But before we get into that, let's thank today's sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by Gold's Gym of Tennessee, and they have a special offer for you on Black Friday weekend. From Black Friday all the way to Cyber Monday, you can buy one, get 1 year free. That's right. When you pay in full for your first year, you get your second year completely free, both in club or online. It's the best deal that they're going to give you all year long, so don't miss your opportunity. Again, that's this Black Friday to Cyber Monday. If you sign up for 1 year, you get your second year completely free when you pay in full. Don't miss this opportunity now. Gold's Gym, stronger together. Joining us now on the Blue Raider Podcast, it is our friends over at Sports of SHSU and March to the Pod, Ben Sorrells. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here. Happy to talk about a exciting game. Saturday, Senior Day for you guys, looking for us to get 3 in a row.
Isn't this just weird? Because 2 weeks ago, we were looking at this matchup as uneventful, unexciting, but Sam Houston picks up a big win in Corvallis, picks up a win last week and probably against Delaware. And then MTSU, really, it obviously we're on a 7-game skid, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel with our quarterback situation last week in Bowling Green. So now there is kind of a level of excitement for this game.
Yeah, there definitely is. There does seem to be a renewed sense of energy around the Sam Houston program, and Coach Longo spoke about that at his press conference earlier this week. There's just a different energy in the building after these 2 wins. And around the program, too, people remember 2023 where you started off 0-8, pretty similar to this year, and you won 3 of your last 4. So looking to replicate that and take some energy and confidence into the offseason, and you've got another big opportunity to do it this Saturday against Middle Tennessee.
Well, let's get into the coaching situation. Phil Longo, one of the many first-time head coaches this year in Conference USA, obviously took the reins over from a Casey Keeler team that had quite the turnover from his first year in FBS to that second year getting to 10 wins. What is the sense around Huntsville about Phil Longo? Is there optimism? I guess it's a lot easier said now with the 2-game winning streak you have. But what's the kind of general vibe around that new head coach?
Yeah, people were really excited. I think that was the general sentiment when he came here in the offseason, a guy that had been the offensive coordinator and had a ton of success in the FCS days from 2014 to 2016. So a lot of excitement there. People were really excited about the offense, concerns about the defense. But it's been a rough year, and I think many people thought that would be the case. It's a brand new staff, entirely new defense. About half the offense came back, but that was all you returned. And we knew it was going to be a down year, but starting 0-8, weren't a lot of competitive games. It was disappointing. There were a lot of external circumstances that are tough. You're not playing at home. You're playing down in Houston. It's a tough schedule. So it was definitely a rough start to the year, but the last 2 games have kind of provided some hope for the fan base that maybe Phil Longo can be the guy, because the first 8 games were really rough. And even with those 2 wins, the offense still has not been great. He's a guy that came here to score points. We haven't seen that yet. But the fact that they're finding ways to win games without scoring a ton of points, I think, provides some hope. So I think there's still a lot of people on the fence about him. The general sentiment around him was you give him this year, no matter what the result is, you kind of live with it. That we're seeing that play out. Next year is kind of when he'll be judged for sure. He'll have a whole off season, be back playing at home, a much more manageable schedule. So I think people are kind of all over the place on him. You want to see him score some more points, want to win some more games, but he's ultimately going to be judged on how he performs this off season and next season.
This is topical for Blue Raider fans to really parallel our situations. As you just touched on, going through the new stadium renovations, you're not playing at home this year. You're playing in front of practically nobody, but you're getting a whole brand new facility going into your second season with Phil Longo. Sounds oddly familiar to what Derek Mason did this last year, going into his second year with a brand new $67 million facility, student athlete and performance center facility. So I bring that up because our situation in MTSU, Mason only won 3 games last year. You're at 2 wins currently. If you win this Saturday, you're at 3. Again, it's uncanny how similar these situations are. So I present all that to you.
Yep.
What does Longo need to do next year for you guys to have that confidence that he is the guy?
Yeah, I think you got to establish yourself at quarterback. He's the guy that his system thrives on the quarterback position no matter where he's been. Drake May at North Carolina, Jeremiah Briscoe previously at Sam Houston, Jordan Ta'amu at Ole Miss. And it looks like Landon Locke is going to be the guy probably going into next year as a sophomore. So you need to identify who your quarterback is going to be. And if it's Landon Locke, you need to retain him. I think that's the biggest thing. And then you're going to have to completely rehaul the defense again. And I think they did a pretty good job hitting on a bunch of one-year guys, but you're going to lose 7 or 8 starters again from this year's team. Can the young guys grow? Because there have been a handful that have really popped here later in the season. Can they show some development as guys that can really contribute next year? And can you hit on another group on the defensive side of the ball? That's going to be a big key. So if you can figure out the quarterback position and then plug some holes on defense with the full offseason, a little more financial backing from the university and the school, I think he could be set up for some success. But I think those two things are what is going to determine his success going into next year in year 2 under him.
My last question, tongue-in-cheek, about your coaching situation. How much recruiting is Longo doing in high school versus banking on what's going to come in the portal this year?
Yeah, the high school class is small right now. It's only 9 or 10 guys, which is a little surprising because he wants to be here for the long term. He wants to build that culture long term. You would think you would build a little bit of a bigger high school class. So it looks like they're going to build through the portal a lot, and they might have to just with how many defensive needs they're going to have. I think you have 28 seniors, and then you're probably going to have 15 to 20 guys, just like every other G5, hit the portal. So you're going to have to go find 30 to 35 guys in the portal to come in and contribute at a pretty high level. And the one thing to watch there is Sam Houston under Casey Keeler, I think, was 92%. His roster was 92% made up of Texans, players from Texas. This year it's down into the 60s or so. Transfer portal class last year was probably 50-50 on players from Texas, outside of Texas. So full off season, a little more funding. Do you stay within state to go grab those transfers? I think that's going to be a big thing to watch for Sam Houston fans, is what the makeup of this new transfer class looks like going into next year.
Small high school class, again, uncanny to the situations that MTSU is facing this year under Coach Derek Mason. But your other key there was quarterback play. Hunter Watson, it was announced this week that he's out for the year, had surgery. I personally, as a football lover, I'm sad to see that. I loved Hunter Watson, one of my favorite Conference USA quarterbacks, probably the most underrated quarterback in Conference USA when it's all said and done. And I hate that that's how his potential last season goes. Who knows? NCAA might grant him 5 more years for all I know, but that's sad to see. But let's get into this game on Saturday. The quarterback situation has been a developing story. You kind of know Watson's been fighting injury out throughout the year. I guess, how do you feel about the potential for Landon Locke to start on Saturday?
Yeah, it looks like Landon's going to be the guy. Hunter's been out a few times this year, and Mabry Matoyer, he's the other guy to know, who's been getting reps in practice. He got a spot start at Hawaii, played a little bit against UNLV earlier this year. He came over with Longo from Wisconsin, but since Watson's been out these last 2 weeks, Landon Locke has beat him out in practice. He won the start last week against Delaware, and it sounds like he's probably going to be the guy again this week against Middle Tennessee. An interesting connection with Locke. Some people might know his brother Braden Locke. He played at Wisconsin under Phil Longo, so that was kind of the connection. But Locke looks like he's probably the guy of the future. I think they're going to burn his red shirt. He played his 4th game last week against Delaware, and it sounds like they're willing to play in these last 2 weeks because they feel like he's the guy, and that's kind of what I've heard internally too. And we'll see where he can go, but he's progressed extremely well. He didn't even play his senior year of high school because of a torn ACL, so he's coming in and starting games and playing a lot as a true freshman and playing pretty well. So he's a guy that looks like he could be the guy of the future, and then probably the guy for these last 2 games also.
One of the storylines, and you kind of touched on it yourself there, was at times this offense is bad, and it's one of the worst as far as scoring goes in Conference USA. I know the quarterback play might be an area of concern because of all the changing hands, but is it simple as that? Just inconsistent quarterback play, or is there more to that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely inconsistent quarterback play. Hunter started the year, got hurt. Mabry came in, came back, got hurt. Mabry played, locks in. So you haven't gotten a lot of consistency there. Your best offensive lineman, who is your center, James Don, also missed the first 4 games of the year. And you were doing a lot of shuffling on the O line with some transfers and young guys. And the O line has gotten so much better the last month of the season now that they've had a few games as a group together. That's been a part of it. And then the other part, too, is there's just been no alpha really emerge at wide receiver. You brought Quavez Humphreys and Michael Phoenix back. Michael Phoenix has barely played, and we haven't gotten a lot of clarity on that this season. Quavez Humphreys has flashed at times, but there hasn't been a true wide receiver kind of establish himself. And you see that a lot in these Phil Longo offenses. He thrives with these offenses. Davion Davis, he was the guy at Sam Houston. Ole Miss, he had DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown. And so Phil Longo's typically used to having those alpha receivers, and you just haven't seen that. And maybe that's another need they address in the portal. But there's been a couple different issues to where they just really haven't been able to put it together this year.
If you were going to exploit MTSU, where do you feel the most comfortable in this offense? Is it the ground game, through the air? What do you got?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely on the ground, it's funny because Phil Longo, people know him as an air raid guy, but he's kind of an air raid guy with a twist. He loves to run the ball. His first year at Sam Houston, they ran for more yards than they passed it back in 2014. So he's a guy that's willing to run the football. And Hunter Watson came in as your original starter, a guy that's going to be a little more efficient with his legs than he is through the air. And so they built the offense that way. And I'm glad they did because of the receiver deficiencies that we've had this year. And there's been a couple running backs step up, and the run game has been really good the last few weeks. I mean, you got blown out Louisiana Tech, but I think you had 300 plus rushing yards. You ran the ball really well last week. And so the success that this offense has had recently, and for most of the year really, has been on the ground, and I think that's what they'll continue to do here moving forward, especially with the freshman quarterback to try to take some of the pressure off of him.
Other side of the football, defensively, I think you would agree. Going in, I'll take a step back here. I interviewed you on our roundtable for Week 0 matchup against Western Kentucky. You said it in our preview show. You said it in that game preview as well, that the defense was suspect, and they have lived up to that calling card since Week 0. What has gone wrong on the defensive side of the football?
Yeah, no depth in the front seven, and that was kind of the concern coming in. And we knew it was going to be an okay secondary, but an okay secondary just couldn't hold up enough when the quarterback's got 5, 6, 7 seconds to throw kind of thing. And it's been bad for about 75% of this year, but it's flashed at times. The past 2 games have probably been your most complete games of the year against Delaware, top scoring offense, I think, in Conference USA coming into that game. Played really well, forced 4 turnovers. At Oregon State, they finished the game with 9 consecutive stops. And you started to see some of the younger guys and transfers that were lower on the depth chart that had only played at the JUCO or D2 or D3 level start to come into their own a little bit. So the defense, while it's been a very rough year overall, and when you look at the bigger picture, it hasn't been great. There's definitely been improvements on that side of the ball throughout the year. And people will also look at the Louisiana Tech game from a couple weeks ago and see it was a really bad game statistically, and it was horrible. You gave up 600 plus yards, but you were down all 4 of your defensive tackles. You didn't have a single scholarship defensive tackle healthy. So they've started to get better once they've gotten healthy the last few weeks, and it's been a good sign for them to show some improvement through these last 2 wins.
Same question that I had for you on offense, but on MTSU's perspective. You say the front 7 is the glaring weakness, but they've performed better in recent weeks. MTSU, a team that we've been preaching for weeks, us in the media that know nothing about football, that we should probably be running the football. That's an area that we've done really well. We saw last week with our quarterback play that Roman can use his legs much like a younger Nick Vadiato would. Even with our star running back, Jaquel Middlebrooks, out, we rushed for the most yards we've had all year long. Would you think, from someone on the outside looking in, that would be the scouting report, is even though they've played better, that you have to run the football against Sam Houston?
Absolutely. I think that's what you have to do. And while we've seen improvements the last few weeks, it's been in the passing game. The edge rushers have found a way to get home. Chris Eaton, one of them. He's found a way to get home. Chauncey Cheedy, he's another one that's found a way to get home the last few weeks. So they've found a way to hold up in the pass game, which has been really good, but teams are still running the ball on them, and they just don't have the depth on the interior to hold up in the run game a lot. So they'll get after you, they'll get after the quarterback, but they're still going to struggle in the run game. So I definitely think the game plan is to still try to run it down their throat as much as you can.
I rarely ever preview an opposing team's special teams. And again, shame on me. I know that special teams is a very important part of this puzzle that is fielding a strong football team. And I bring this up because in your last two wins, particularly the Oregon State game, you don't win that game without the effort that you have on special teams. Is that an area that you've noticed Longo has put a point of emphasis, again, that if you want to win these football games, that's an area that you guys have to be better at, and it paid off in that Oregon State game?
It did. Yeah. The special teams is another group that's really progressed throughout the year. It started as a group that was struggling, have a brand new punter. You bring back Christian Pavon, who struggled last year. You brought in a transfer in RJ Lopez. They were battling it out. So there were a lot of unknowns there, but the group has really settled in. And about week 3 or 4, Longo made the point that our special teams is in a good spot, but we need to start making game-changing plays on punts, kick returns, punt returns. And we started to see it 2 weeks ago at Oregon State with the kick return, the block punt. Last week you hit 4 field goals, 2 of them from 45 yards or longer. And it's really been a group that started to make a difference. And even in the punting game, you've downed a few punts inside the 5, inside the 10. So it's a group that he kind of called out at the beginning of the year to step it up, and they did. They got things sorted out, and then he called on them again about a month ago. Said we need to start making some game-changing plays, and that's what they did also. And they've really stepped up, and they've had to with the way the offense has performed and the defense has performed this year.
Certainly, it's a field position game at all times, and special teams is going to be a big part of that. And that's a point that when these offenses, I think, at times are going to get really stale this Saturday, that special teams is going to play a huge part in what offense can get going based on short field position, et cetera. So as we get into this next segment here, I got to thank our sponsor for it, Trevor Haggard of State Farm, because when life happens, you're going to want someone in your corner who actually knows your name, and that's where Trevor Haggard State Farm comes in. Whether it's protecting your car, your home, or your family's future, Trevor and his team are right here in Murfreesboro ready to help. So don't just settle for some 1-800 number. Call a neighbor who cares. Call Trevor Haggard State Farm today at 615-203-5522 or visit their website at trevorismyagent.com and let them help protect what matters most. Trevor Haggard State Farm, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. And Ben, that leads me into this Trevor Haggard State Farm segment, our keys to the game. We've done ours for the Blue Raiders earlier this week, but from your perspective, what are the 2 things that the Bearkats need to do well to win on Saturday?
Yeah, right there. I think the first one is establish the run game. It's a team that's going to find their success on the ground. I asked Phil Longo at his presser this week what the offense can do to get going early in the games, because they start to find their footing kind of in the second half, but he wants to get them going earlier. And he mentioned they got to establish the run. You're going to see a lot of Coco Brown this week. It sounds like Elijah Green is going to be out again. Alton McCaskill, your other running back, has kind of been in and out with injuries and hasn't been as effective recently. So got to establish the run game with Coco Brown. I think that's the big thing on offense to get him going early. And then lastly, win the turnover battle. You forced 7 turnovers the last 2 weeks in your 2 wins. The defense has been super opportunistic all year, especially these last 2 weeks. So if you can find some sort of consistency early on with the run game and the offense and continue to force those turnovers and win the turnover battle, I think you've got a good shot to find a victory on Saturday.
Well, just like Trevor Haggard can be an impact for you and your insurance needs, the Bearkats, you previewed it there a little bit. Who is going to be your impact player for the Bearkats?
Yeah, going with Coco Brown. He looks to be the featured back this weekend. He had a great week against Delaware. Some people might have seen his hurdle touchdown where he wiped out 2 Delaware defenders and took it to the house. I think it was 63 yards, had over 100 yards on the day. He's going to be the featured back. They're going to want to run the ball, and they also will use him in the passing game quite a bit. They love to run that kind of wheel route with him out to the side. They'll send all the receivers out and just kind of have him go out wide and dump it down to him and have him make a play. So he's going to be involved heavily in the run game and the pass game. And he's a guy that Sam Houston's going to have to rely a lot on this week with a young quarterback in Landon Locke.
in a running back by committee group, having almost 600 yards of total offense is something, again, to be admired. I think that's he's going to be a tough out. And in this conference, you face plenty of guys that kind of have that threat. So I made the apology to you. I wasn't familiar with his game, but certainly a back to keep your eyes on for Saturday. So set this table one last time here at Floyd Stadium. It is Senior Day, a 2 p.m. kickoff on ESPN Plus. The Blue Raiders, to my surprise, earlier in this week opened up as touchdown favorites. At the time of this recording, not much has changed. It's still there. The over-under is at 53.5. I personally thought that was a little high, but Ben, I know that you haven't heard my prediction yet because it hasn't come out, but what do you think the outcome of this game is?
Yeah, similar to your train of thought. I don't think either offense is really going to get going a ton. I think it's probably going to be in the 40s. So I think it's probably going to be, and I think Sam Houston's probably going to win this game. I'm going to go something like 24-23 Sam Houston. I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way, but a team that's riding a 2-game winning streak, coming in motivated, trying to make it 3. I think Sam Houston can go on the road and win this one, and I think it's going to be close. I'll take the under. But those are just some of my early impressions on it and what my game prediction is for this week.
Man, I'm with you on the ugly game. I think these offenses in the same boat. Like, neither one can really find consistency. Fortunately for MTSU, you think you have the quarterback of the future. Maybe that playbook opens up. I would argue bring that same playbook you brought to Bowling Green because something worked, something clicked. And then on the defensive side, this will be I'm going to use air quotes, the 6th backup quarterback, because Landon Locke obviously should be on the scouting report. He did start last week. So you would think that they have enough film that he's not considered a backup quarterback, but for all intents and purposes, another backup quarterback. But Sam Houston has shown their struggles, and our front seven tends to do pretty well against really good running backs. So it's definitely a story that I'm watching. I had it even lower. I'm telling you, I had this at a total of 31 points. I thought MTSU would win 17-14 because the offenses would be just so bad.
Yeah.
But it's a game that, again, the other side of it too is I think this game is going to be a lot of chess early on because both programs understand the importance of this. Although this means nothing in the grand scheme of college football, but Mason, we have to win. We got to win here in New Mexico State. Just like Phil Longo, I mean, a 3-game win streak does a lot to reviving his public image. I mean, there's a lot riding, and in Senior Day, that's got something to add to it. There's just a lot riding on this game. I think you will agree that like this means a lot to these two programs.
It does. Yeah, well, and it's the first time the two have met since that little skirmish at the end of the 2023 game.
Forgot.
Probably not a ton of guys left. I think we might have maybe 10 or so left from that game. And yeah, I think 24-23, but Sam Houston, it feels like we'll score a defensive touchdown or a kick return. That'll be part of our 7, and I think we've thrown 3 or 4 pick sixes this year. So I'm kind of mixing in some of those also with the scoring. It's probably going to be, like a 17-14, 16-13 kind of thing with the offenses, and then we'll see some sort of score from a defense or special teams. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Over under on defensive / special teams points versus the offense, I think, or the margin here. I'm thinking it's going to be pretty darn close. I'd be willing to bet that the defenses score the exact same as the offenses, defense and special teams included.
It would not surprise me whatsoever. I mean, and we saw that against Oregon State for us. And we've just had so many defensive and special teams touchdowns. It's probably been 6 or 7 of them this year. And then, like I said, we've thrown like 4 pick sixes and have lost some fumbles too and some critical spots. So I wouldn't be surprised if each defense and special teams found a way to put up 1 or 2 touchdowns.
Well, the last home game I tried to describe earlier this week, the last home game for the Blue Raiders was that blowout loss to FIU. And if you had a way to kind of imprint what happened at Huntsville, or I should say at your satellite location, but where what happened against Delaware is almost a picture-perfect representation. I mean, Delaware turned it over on their side of the field, and you guys just capitalized on it. Even though you weren't necessarily turning those into touchdowns, you were getting points on the board, and that's something that FIU exploited tremendously. And so if you get into this coughing up the football match with Sam Houston, they've clearly shown that they have the ability to turn the ball over. So
yeah, and it's a lot of I was talking to someone earlier this week, and they were saying Sam Houston's it's a super old team. Like I said, I think they've got 28 seniors and a lot of other juniors. They'll just drag you into the mud, make it a really ugly game, and find a way to win it just because they've got a lot of older guys. And they're an older team, a lot of one-year guys on this team. So if they find a way to make it super ugly, super muddy, like they have the last few weeks, I mean, Sam Houston might find a way to win.
I think we both programs have looked at this game all year long. Like, get me to the Sam Houston game, get me to the MTSU game. That's a game that I think we can win. So Here we are, MTSU trying to snap their own skid, and then Sam Houston trying to extend theirs. But Ben, I appreciate you taking the time to join us this week. Real quick before we sign off here, let the fans know where they can find you, all of your content that you're putting out. Of course, Hoops is around the corner. We're in the thick of it. Probably by the time this comes out, what kind of stuff can we expect from you, and where can we find it?
Yeah, so at Sports of SHSU, all one word, on X/Twitter and Instagram. You can find all the up-to-date content on pretty much every sport at Sam Houston. And then on the podcast, March number 2, the pod, all one word, can find that on pretty much any platform. Also, we go live Wednesday afternoons, and then it's posted that night. Also doing work with our collective Cat Fund, and doing some exclusive content with them and articles behind the scenes. So a lot of different things. Sports of SHSU, March to the Pod, and Cat Fund. You can find me at any of those.
Ben is one of the best in our Conference USA roundtable, if not the best. No one knows more about the Bearkats than anyone than this guy right here. So I appreciate Ben once again for joining us, and I appreciate you, the listener, for tuning in today. If you're not already following us on our social medias at Blue Raider Pod, that's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X/Twitter at Blue Raider Pod. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button, because tomorrow, at the conclusion of Senior Day against Sam Houston, we will have our live reaction show where we have the press conference with Coach Mason and select players. And of course, Connor Smith will be joining us in our post-game reaction show. So you don't want to miss that. Again, follow so you don't. But we will see you tomorrow at Senior Day. And until next time, go Blue.